I can start. My name's Steffen. I'm a third year student at Harvard. I joined the chapter. I knew coming into law school that NLG was something I wanted to be involved in. I'll probably talk about this more later in the interview, but I was arrested in a mass arrest, the J20 protest against Trump's inauguration in DC, and National Lawyers Guild was really involved in that. And I also did a little bit of jail support hotline work in St. Louis, and National Lawyers Guild attorneys were always there. And when I went to law school, I knew I wanted to be involved in that work and learn more about how lawyers could contribute to social movements.
Yeah, very similarly, before coming to law school, was involved in various protest movements, always saw the folks with the lime green hats. Many of them were law students. It was the first time I'd heard of NLG. So yes, excited to be involved in the chapter here once I got to law school. When I was in college, I really started getting involved in kind of social justice, political, radical leftist spaces, and really the ones that were led by Black women and Black, queer, and trans folks. And they were all abolitionists. So I was like, cool, I'll be abolitionist too. Specifically, one of my favorite professors named Juanita Lubiano, who's a Black woman, brilliant scholar and abolitionist. And from there got really involved. The uprising in Ferguson happened in 2014 when I was in college, got really involved in solidarity work, as well as local jail solidarity work in the town I was living at the time. Also then got really involved in Movement for Black Lives organizing. And yeah, the second half of that question, how's the time in NLG furthered that? Primarily, what I've been doing through the NLG chapter has just been showing up to the People Not Prisons Coalition meetings that happen every week and kind of learning about and supporting the work that's happening there, which has been really great to kind of move to a new city and immediately find where the cool abolitionists are and get to support what it is that they are working on.
Yeah, so for me, it was also, came out of my involvement with protest movements and radical leftist spaces. I graduated from college in St. Louis just before the Ferguson uprising, so I wasn't in St. Louis, but had a lot of friends who are still there, and had that kind of connection with the protests and the movement indirectly from what friends were posting on social media and sharing with me. And I got involved in Black Lives Matter protests and organizing in Providence, Rhode Island, where I was living at the time. So I had that kind of like background in some of the racial issues with the criminal justice system. And then I was arrested at the J20 protest against Trump in DC. And that was just such a radicalizing experience. First of all, just to go through the criminal legal system as a defendant and just seeing firsthand how disempowering and stressful and just the financial and emotional burdens that put on us as defendants, even though eventually all the charges were dismissed. And it also just connected me with a really radical community of anarchists and abolitionists who, just gave me a foundation in a lot of the political views that I have today. And since being at the chapter, I think really similar to Mina, like the work we've done with People Not Prisons has been just really fulfilling. And I've learned so much from all the members of that group, and particularly, like the Black women who've been directly affected by the carceral system who lead that movement, and how the coalition can be structured to center their leadership, I think is really insightful. And then also like legal observing for some of the protests to further racial justice in the criminal legal system. And I've worked with Josh Raisler and some of our members, Alex Ropes, Jason Golfinos, and Kyla Clay, who's at the Suffolk chapter, to manage the jail support hotline, to also help support people who are out in the streets in this movement. Yeah, so I think part of it is built on our relationships with people who are doing a lot of advocacy work in the prison, particularly prison reform is where we've really engaged in legislative testimony, having connections to organizations like Prisoners Legal Services, Committee for Effective Public Safety, Massachusetts Against Solitary Confinement, and then of course People Not Prisons. Like we've been able to connect with like the legislative work that those organizations are doing and stay up to date with like what the bills are that the broader criminal justice reform community are, what bills they're advocating for. So that connection really helped. And then in terms of like getting the work done within our chapters, we held these like action hours where folks would meet on Zoom or in person and just commit to spending like 1 hour working on this testimony. So we could kind of divide up the different bills, folks could take different pieces of it, and we could like hammer out a lot of stuff at once and cover like a lot of different bills in a shorter period of time.
Community and political solidarity and alignment.
Yeah.
You know it when you see it. But you have to be active and you have to participate to get there.
And I think, yeah, also along with that, like in political solidarity, like amplifying the voices and the demands of folks who are really at the center of these issues. And I think we have some privilege, especially as Harvard students, to, I don't know, use whatever additional social capital we might have through that affiliation to further these causes. And I think in some ways, compared to like other, I don't know, direct service organizations or people who to some degree rely on the cooperation or some sort of relationship with the Department of Corrections or other government agencies, like we have some freedom to be a little bit more critical or direct or, I don't know, aggressive in the language that we can use in our testimony. So I'd encourage students to use that power themselves too. So I think we've done a lot of work over the last few years. I joined the coalition in the summer of 2020. And I think there was a question for me when I was joining about what role we could play as students in that space, because I think there are a lot of valid criticisms from organizers about, students in particular kind of coming and going. It's hard to sustain those relationships as with student turnover. So that's something I think we're trying to be really intentional about. In particular, like Mina has really been taking on a lot of that role, and we'll be here another year to carry forward that relationship. But I think we wanted to find kind of our niche. And so part of the things that I thought, like we did, I think both of us and other students contribute like volunteer work, especially like one-off projects where it's not, the group doesn't necessarily need like a sustained engagement from us as students, just to avoid that problem. So things like action hours, like calling legislators, doing art builds, like making signs for individual rallies, coordinating legal observers for actions when they requested, and the legislative testimony piece are some things that I can think of. I don't know, Mina, do you want to have anything to add to that, I guess?
Yeah, a lot of practical stuff that we've done in solidarity, but I think like before all of that, really showing up and participating as participants. So maybe not even coming in as, I'm a law student, I do the law, where's the law so I can do it, but really coming in as a human, as abolitionist, as radical, as a community member, as someone who sees your own liberation as bound up in the liberation of all people, all oppressed people, and showing up like from that place, I think has allowed lots of opportunities to participate, to to manifest, including legal advocacy opportunities.
Well, I think I first found out about it through People Not Prisons meetings, and then through calls for legal observers on the NLG Massachusetts listserv. So that was sort of my point of entry. I don't know, Mina, if you want to.
Yeah, similarly, again, the power of just kind of showing up and being in spaces regularly. So when things happen, those who have organized around this issue before, who are closer to the ground, can make the call to action, and you're kind of ready to respond, which is kind of what happened in that moment. As well as I think, at least to me, what was really instrumental also was a relationship with the Charles Hamilton Houston Institute and their kind of movement community lawyer, Katie. I think she's a really great bridge for us as law students to make that connection between the law and the world that we're in, and kind of community-based grassroots work, both because that's the place where her work sits, but also because she does have the longevity of being here for well beyond the 3 years that we're here. So I think that was also really helpful in that moment.
Yeah, and I think also, yeah, it helped us find our place. I think that, yeah, like Mina was saying before, there were ways that we were directly engaging as individuals, showing up to rallies as just, you know, people who were showing up, bringing signs, helping, like there were some like direct aid of just like handing out, you know, coffee and donuts to folks as a sign of solidarity. And then also finding ways within the framework that these people who are, you know, closer to the folks on the ground and really familiar with the issue, like where they could see us fitting in with like a sort of particular legal value add. So that was like things like legal observing, and then court watching. We helped with the court watching of the jail court that was operating out of the jail down at Mass and Cass as well.
It's hard.
People are very busy and very siloed. And I think there's levels to it, right? So I think within the law school is probably our like core focus. And there are a lot of groups here who are doing abolitionist work, but in a lot of different angles and yeah, different like kind of bubbles of students, if that makes sense. Like there's our student practice organizations and clinics who are doing this sort of work, but from a, yeah, like a direct services approach. There's more like advocacy type organizations like National Lawyers Guild, and some of the like cross school organizations like Harvard Alliance Against Campus Cops or the Harvard Prison Divestment Campaign. And then of course there's stuff like at the college and the divinity school and the medical school, and you know, it's a lot to kind of coordinate. Yeah.
Well, I think there have been efforts within the chapter to try and use skill shares, political education, community building as a way of bringing people together to talk about these issues that I think we're all genuinely committed to, but don't always work together very intentionally and at scale.
Well, first of all, I think we really appreciate the legal observing and know your rights trainings, like sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And I know just like personally, having worked specifically with Josh Razor-Cohn, like he has been just such a fantastic like mentor through this work, through getting to know him on the hotline and through legal observing and working with him on the Mass and Cass response. Like those relationships with practicing attorneys who have been in this movement lawyering space for so long is fantastic. And I think maybe providing more opportunities for that sort of mentoring work, just because that was so beneficial for me. I don't know, Mina, if you have.
Yeah, I second that.
Yes. And I think, yeah, we've also had some, this was with the NLG National, and NLG Massachusetts helped us with this, but we've also really benefited from grants from the national level that also NLG Massachusetts, your chapters helped us like with managing those and with the applications. And that has really allowed us to do, yeah, be much more ambitious with the programming that we've been doing as a chapter.